in terms of actually figuring out how much you're going to need, how big a system you're going to need, how do you recommend people go about determining that for their homes?
So the first thing we usually do is ask what your average daily usage is. So a lot of people that call might say, "Oh, well, my bill's about $400 a quarter or something." But actually, the figure you want to look at when you look at your bill is your average daily usage, which has a kWh, stands for kilowatt hours. And that's how much power you're using in the home because it varies depending on your retailer and depending on how much you're actually paying for electricity. So have a look at what your average daily usage is, and then you're going to be able to calculate. Of course, some of your usage is always going to be at night. For example, lights generally aren't when the sun's shining. Entertainment is usually in the evenings. Your fridge runs all the time, so there's going to be some daytime use. And then a lot of people are in the habit of using things like a dishwasher at night, putting it on before they go to bed. So there'll be a bit of behavior change to maximize the amount of power you can use during the day. But roughly, if you had a system that matched about 60% of what you currently use, your average daily usage, then that's kind of a fairly realistic goal to try and shift that much power and use that much power. Having said all that, though, a lot of suppliers are now just recommending getting a big system because of things like batteries becoming more readily available on the market, because of electric vehicles presumably being more popular in the coming years. I just read this morning that Google Maps are actually putting electric vehicle charging points on their maps now. So it's becoming quite mainstream. So within the
Fantastic.
next 20 years, yeah, we'll probably see a lot more electric cars. There'll probably be a lot more batteries. So a lot of suppliers are just saying, look, you can fit X amount of panels on your roof. Just go for that. So there are ways to try and calculate, but actually, if we want to sort of future-proof our homes, if you can afford to, it's worth putting a bigger system on. And a huge component of the cost of an install is going to be the labor. So rather than get a system and think, oh, well, in a few years' time, I'll add some more panels, it's more cost effective to just put a bigger system on now.
Okay. And so yeah, because I think that's the one of the mental kind of disconnects is that this is something that if you don't have a storage system on site, you are literally going to be only able to use it during the day when the sun is on it because it's a direct conversion exercise from the sun into your house electric network. So it's interesting that conversation about behavior change and to be able to maximize the use when it's actually generating power versus just keeping your habits the same. And basically, you're then just getting discounted energy, really, aren't you? Because you're feeding stuff back into the grid at a rate of some sort, but it's not necessarily always equal to the rate that you're paying. So I think that's a really interesting conversation. The other thing I encourage people to look at when they're doing, say, a new build and they're putting in new appliances, they're renovating, their kitchens and those types of things, is to look at what they can do to lower their energy use overall and how they can design their home to really, lower their heating and cooling costs and all of those things that we have in houses that are big energy suckers. What can we do to really reduce those energy use overall? So then we're not having to feed the house as much power in the first
Yeah,
place.
yeah, exactly. So the conversation should always start with energy efficiency. However, it's not very sexy and it's not very visible. So people don't really engage with energy efficiency. So sometimes it's sort of like you hook people in by going, "Oh, you're interested in solar, and have you thought about insulating and draft proofing and your windows and all those things?" So, yeah, it's behavior change is always very challenging. But like you say, even if people didn't change their behavior, they still will have a discount. It just means the payback period is a lot longer. We work closely with the ATA, the Alternative Technology Association. They did some modeling last year on a home that was exporting all the power to the grid, and had a 5 kilowatt system, so about 20 panels. And they still estimated that the payback would be under 9 years. So that was without using any power on site. So even with the low feed-in tariffs, you can still reduce your bill and you should still see savings. But yeah, the maximum savings are going to be from using the power. And when we say the sun's shining, I'm sure you know this, but just for your listeners, it doesn't have to be a sunny day, it just means daylight. In spring and summer, we have longer days and sunnier days, so we do generate more power. But even in winter, even on a cloudy day, you'll still see some generation from your system.
No, and so the smart meter that's being included into the meter boards, what does that actually physically do? Is that something that the energy companies use to see the translation between power out and power in, or what does that smart meter do?
So the smart meter does a few things. One of them is that it records your data about, well, there's a couple of different ones. One, it's about half hourly, and one, it's 15-minute intervals. So you can have a much better understanding of your power because most of them have a portal that you can log in and see your usage. So that's from the energy company's perspective, with or without solar, they want to be able to monitor very accurately your usage and when it's happening, and then they can keep a track of peak demand, when there's certain times of the day that everyone's using lots of power. And then in terms of the solar, exactly, it manages how much you're buying from the grid and how much you're sending out to the grid.